Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depends where you are right now in the world. Welcome to our next round of workshops to the B2B Software Days. I'm pleased that you have chosen Fiverr and open standards, a topic that is playing an increasingly important role in IT and is here to stay. This is one of 24 workshops within the B2B Software Days. My name is Bernhard Schmid. I work for the Vienna Business Agency as team leader for digital technologies. We support, network, advise, and promote innovative companies in Vienna and those who want to come to Vienna to start up their business. I'm particularly pleased that we were able to set up this workshop together with the Fiverr Foundation. Together with the City of Vienna, the Vienna Business Agency has been gold member of the foundation for several years. And we work very closely and successfully together. I wish you a very informative 90 minutes, and please do not hesitate to ask questions to our renowned experts via the Slido. We start right away with the first presentation, and I'm very happy and honored that Ulrich Ahle, the CIO of the Fiverr Foundation, is with us, and of course he's online from Germany. Ulrich is a reputed executive in the IT sector, formerly vice president and leader of the manufacturing and industry 4.0 system integration business at Atos in Germany. He is also founder and member of the board of the International Data Spaces Association in Germany and served 16 years in the board of ProSep IVIP organization. He studied mechanical engineering at the University of Paderborn in Germany. In his career, Ulrich held several positions as development engineer, director of PLM services, sales director, and vice president. He has been part of Nixdorf Computer, Siemens, and Atos. Since January 2017, Ulrich is Chief Executive Officer of the Fiverr Foundation, headquartered in Berlin, Germany. And we already worked together a lot of time and did already a lot of projects and things. So I'm really happy that you are here. Ulrich, welcome, and please give us your presentation.
Yeah, Bernhard, thank you very much for the invitation and for the introduction. And a very good afternoon to all the participants in our workshop here today. Before starting with my presentation, I would appreciate to get a bit a feeling of the audience, and we have prepared two questions which I would like to ask the colleagues to share with us, if it is possible also for us to see them. I don't know, Alexander, if you could support here in this. Otherwise, if it doesn't work, I can start to share my screen and do my presentation. Okay, I think I will share my screen, and I'm pretty sure you can now see my screen. And I would like to talk a bit about FIWARE, so an open source technology, how this technology is used to create data spaces based on Gaia X. And I will briefly introduce what FIWARE is, and I will also briefly introduce what Gaia X is for those of you who have not heard about this new upcoming European initiative, which I'm pretty sure about will change the world when it comes to the management of data. But let me start with a first introduction to FIWARE and to how we see the world, the digital world, which will, as our total digital life, more and more gravitate around digital twins and context information. So information describing what's happening around us, where, when, and why. Illustrated here as an example with the city of Berlin, where we are headquartered in Germany. But today, these data are very often organized in silos, because data models don't fit to each other, APIs are not open or not sufficiently accessible or interoperable, or why? Because the organizations, the companies do not support the exchange of data, or because there's not sufficient trust in the sovereign handling of this data. And our mission at FIWARE is to break down this data silos in different domains, as you can see here, in smart cities, in energy, in transportation, in industry, and so on. And we are targeting, as I mentioned at the beginning, to represent the real world, and you can see it here on the left side, within a digital twin, which means to capture data from the real world, represent it in a digital representation of the real world. So this is what the digital twin is called. And then to use functionalities like artificial intelligence, big data analytics, and so on to process, analyze, and monitor this data, to update the digital twin with the results of this analysis, and provide information, to provide data back to the real world, and where possible, also to actuate out of the digital twin into the real world. So to automate processes. Maybe a good example for this are autonomously driving cars, which are steered out of the digital twin of the car and the world around. And this structure, data from the real world, the digital twin representation, and functionalities to process, analyze, and monitor the data, were the guiding principles for the design of a FIWARE-based solution. So what is FIWARE? It is a framework of open source software components. We are not, as FIWARE Foundation, we are not providing complete products. So for example, complete smart city platforms or smart industry platforms, nor we are providing complete smart solutions. We are providing the building blocks necessary to build such solutions. And we call this open source components, we call them generic enablers. And on the left side, you can see, according to the picture I showed before, a very simplified architecture of a FIWARE-based solution. In the center, the context broker. And you see here on the bottom right, the context broker is one of these generic enablers, and it is the most important one. Then we have southbound, or at the bottom of this architecture, the interfaces to get access to data coming from different sources, and northbound, functionalities to process, analyze, and visualize this data, as explained before in the example of the digital twin. And here in the center, what we are also providing is our interfaces, and the main one here is called the Next Generation Service Interface, NGSI. This is in the meantime, standard interface in several domains, mainly in smart cities, to break down these data silos and to make data available on platforms to use them for smart solutions. And this simplified architecture on the left side is shown on the next page in a bit more detail. Based on the example of smart cities, we have similar architectures for industry, for energy, and also for what we call agri-food, so digitization of farming and food production. You can again see the context broker in the center. Southbound, the NGSI-based interfaces to get access to the context information, to the data coming from different sources, from, let's say, from cameras, from sensors deployed in an IoT network, from drones, from other IT systems, but also from social media like Facebook or Twitter. So what's publicly published in social media, or already existing smart solutions within an ecosystem. Managed by the context broker, and on top, functionalities for workflow management, for big data analytics, for artificial intelligence, up to the provision of open data portals. Here we mostly rely on CCAN, which is another open source product with certain enhancements for and from FIWARE. So this is the third component we are providing. Again, software building blocks, standard APIs, reference architectures, and I will come to the fourth and final point on the next page. But before coming to that, I would like to mention two comments on the two before mentioned components. The context broker is, in the meantime, elected by all European member states to become a so-called CEF building block. CEF stands for Connecting Europe Facility, which is an important program of the European Commission to make the single digital market, or the digital single market of the European Union, reality. So far, there were 5 building blocks. All national ID cards, for example, are using EID. And the FIWARE context broker became the CEF building block number 6, now recommended by the European Commission to the member states to be used when creating digital solutions. And on the right side, NGSI, which became over the years a de facto standard, is since 2 years the formal standard for context information management in smart cities. So the standard API to break down these data silos and to make data spaces interoperable. And now coming to the fourth and final component we are providing as the FIWARE Foundation, and these are standard data models. We started this program 2.5 years ago together with TM Forum, which is a global telco and IT organization with more than 1,000 members, and together with initially 12 so-called front-runner smart cities. That's where the name of the program is coming from. Vienna has been one of these 12 cities, 10 from Europe, plus La Plata from Argentina, and Montevideo, the capital of Uruguay. And in the meantime, more than 500 different data models have been defined, and all of them are published on GitHub. If you look for smart data models on GitHub, you will find this repository. So again, these are the 4 main components: software building blocks, standard interfaces, standard data models, and reference architectures. And in the next part of this 90 minutes workshop, my colleague Gernot will go into more details of this FIWARE technology. And I would like to come to the second part of my presentation, talking about Gaia-X. Gaia-X is a large initiative started 2 years ago by the German government, then shortly joined by the French government, with the ambition to create a federated cloud infrastructure based on European values, to create an alternative to the so-called hyperscalers coming from the US and from China. So hyperscalers like Google, like Microsoft, like Amazon, or like Alibaba, based, as I said, on European values. And the core targets of Gaia-X is to provide data sovereignty, so to allow the creator of a set of data to determine and to technically enforce what someone who gets access to his or her data is allowed and also able to do with this data. That's what we call data sovereignty. Second, to reduce dependencies from these hyperscalers, as I mentioned before. Third, to create increasing transparency and attractiveness of digital services. And finally, the creation of digital infrastructures and an ecosystem of innovation. And this X, which you can see here in the center, is the logo and also the basic architecture of what's behind Gaia X. So providing a sovereign infrastructure, providing in the center so-called federated services, and on the top functionalities to create data spaces. And in more detail, this looks like this. You can see here at the bottom the infrastructure ecosystem to provide this federated cloud infrastructure, then to have the federation services, providing identity and trust, sovereign data exchange, compliance, and a federated catalog. And on top, the data spaces in different verticals. And the first implementation of a Gaia X-based data space will be the mobility data space, which shall be ready by October of this year in quite a large program. And with this, based on these data spaces, to provide advanced smart services. This is Gaia X. The organization behind it has been established beginning of this year in Belgium. It's an AISBL according to Belgium law. The former chairman of the board of directors of the Fiverr Foundation, and I'm reporting in my role as CEO to a board of directors, is now the chairman of the board of directors of the Gaia X organization. His name is Hubert Tadieu, coming from the company Atos in Paris, or in Besson, to be more precise. And Fiverr is heavily contributing to the creation of data spaces based on Gaia X. We are co-authors of a document which was published last week called Design Principles for Data Spaces. You can see there were a lot of other organizations participating in this, and one of the core pictures of this document is shown here on the left side, where we have what we call a soft infrastructure and neutral building blocks to create these data spaces in different domains, synthesizing these building blocks like Lego stones, putting them together, and then creating an ecosystem based on these data spaces. And these are the building blocks in a bit bigger. And you can see again here topics like data exchange APIs. We learned about NGSI before. We have data models, so the Smart Data Models initiative, but also trusted exchange, which is very, very important. And we have a close partnership and relationship between Fiverr and the International Data Spaces Association, also headquartered in Germany, where I'm also a member of the board, to provide this building block to the creation of data spaces based on Gaia X. So if you have not heard about Gaia X, keep your eyes open and have a look for this. To close, why are so many end users, and we have in the meantime hundreds of cities, for example, creating their smart city based on Fiverr technology? Fiverr is in the domain of smart cities, the globally leading open source technology. Why are so many end users doing that? The basic software, so the platform, the generic enablers, are open source, available for everyone for free forever. There is a large open source developers community which is maintaining and further developing this basic software components. In addition, we have a large group of startups and global corporates which are using these components to build solutions. And in the combination, the Fiverr ecosystem is able to provide the lowest cost of ownership to the end users. And finally, and maybe this is even more important, by using standard, public and royalty-free data models and open APIs, the so-called vendor lock-in effect is avoided. or at least dramatically reduced. A short history on FIWARE. It was created starting 2011 in a public-private partnership of the European Commission with several European companies. It was called the Future Internet PPP. This is where the FI in FIWARE is coming from. And then back in 2016, the Fiverr Foundation was created by Atos, Engineering, Orange, and Telefonica. And in the meantime, out of these 4 founding members, we grew to more than 390 members from all over the world. And here you can see an overview of part of our members, the Platinum members. It's the highest category in the center. And you can also see the city of Vienna, which became a so-called strategic gold end user as a member of the Fiverr Foundation, because for example, the platform smartdata.vienna is based on Fiverr technology. And with this, I would like to close with Fiverr, the open source platform technology for our smart digital future. And more about Fiverr will now follow from Gernot. Thank you very much.
Yes, hello, this is Gernot Böge speaking from Hamburg. And I hope you can see my screen. Sorry, what? And so you should see my screen. I will go on with the presentation. I have a little overlap with Ulrich because I thought we had different sessions, but I cleaned up my presentation a bit. So I will give more the technical focus and a little bit of demonstration, but also some feedback for the technical background of how to bootstrap distributed data processing networks, because Ulrich was talking about data spaces. I will pick that up later a bit, and I go into full screen mode. And I'm going to show you how this is more or less going to happen. The presentation is short, it's only online, so it's not the same as being in a full online and live seminar, but I will try to do my best. I'm solution architect at Fiverr since 2018, but I am dealing with Fiverr since 2015, already in the FIWARE project, once as a startup, as a technical part of a startup project. And so, that's my way to Vienna today. Good. This chart is very popular. It's the same as Uri said, who, what, when, why, all these W questions is important to describe the world around us, because this is context, this is what we want to collect, and this is what we want to act on. And this is the core idea of what we do in Fiverr. Good. I think we will provide the presentation afterwards, and this is a perfect demonstration of what Fiverr really is. This is a YouTube video. It's around 2.5 minutes. It's a real great show reel that shows you what Fiverr is doing. So this is not words, this is not charts, but this is a really engaging animated video that is perfectly showing what we are doing. I don't show it online because this normally is lacking of performance. But if you get the charts or if you make a screenshot, I only can recommend to check out this video, because this is a perfect summary of what Fiverr does. It's not from today, so questions of Gaia X are missing there, but the core mission is still there. So I can really just recommend to go there. Fiverr is about reactivity, around fast and fresh data. So we have spoken about context. So what we do with context, we capture context. So we have sensors out in the field. So we measure data, we measure temperature, we measure positions of buses or something. We collect the data, we integrate them into the platform, we process the data, and then we actuate something, like Ulrich already said, that you have like an autonomous car with some steering engine inside. We capture data, we process data, and result will be re-injected into the platform, and it is then directed down to the south, as we said, to actuate something. So you can have like if you have image recognition in a car and you are looking for a crossing walkers, then you can have the actuation of go left, go right to not hit the walker. And so context matters. And we have learned over the last years, the older a data gets, the less worthy it is. So for us, it's the reactivity around really fast and fresh data to act almost immediately. And the faster this actuation and this acting happens, the more valuable it is. Consider the car example. If you have a steering command that is coming 10 seconds late, you have just rolled over the walker. And so this is a good example of how fast and fresh data is very valuable for the real life, for the context around us, and that's the reason why context matter. And this is the mission of FIWARE. This is our focus, and I will go into more detail now. So in the middle, we have the context broker. I will flesh up now a bit more details than Ulrich did in his high-level presentation. So we have reference architectures from different domains, but all of them have in common that we have the context broker in the middle. This is essential because we have also the label powered by FIWARE architecture, and for that you have to do the FIWARE context broker. You can choose whatever you want around, so you are not forced to integrate all the other components around, but it is important to hold the context broker as a data hub in the center of your architecture that is holding all kinds of data of your use case. So I have picked up a wind energy use case here in my slides. So it's data about wind turbines, about wind plants, about substation. This is for changing electricity, charging stations for cars, for the whole ecosystem of energy. And this again goes into the context of data spaces, because it's not only your data, but at least tomorrow it will be your data and data from others that you combine into smart applications to act as good and fast, as valuable as possible. Always remember this reactivity loop: sense, process, actuate. This is our important mission. So we keep data. We collect data from the real world. We process it, and this is a continuous loop. And it is important to mention that this is not only for now data. It's not only for the temperature we have now, but you can also put statistics about history data, like aggregated data, so the average temperature of the last month, of the last year, of the last 30 years in climate questions. So this is different from many IoT platforms. So it's not only now, but it's also collecting data from the past. And if you have processed something like with artificial intelligence, or so in the past it's more the big data, and if you look to the future, you have something like predictions, you have something like machine or artificial intelligence processes that try to predict the future, and you say, okay, based on the weather report I have collected as an now data, I predict that the temperature will be 20 degrees tomorrow. And so it's not an IoT platform that only holds the data from now. It also holds the data from the future. So if you have predictions into the future, you can also provide them on the platform and make them available for other processes, for users, and for external data spaces to use this data and make valuable further processing of it. Again, the question of capturing data, processing data, actuating data. This is the red line through all, roter Faden through all what we do here in FIWARE. Good. Again, here this is, as Ulrich said, there are several architectures. Here, this is the architecture of the smart grid management system. So it's energy oriented. So here in this case, we have the energy data in there, but as Ulrich said, we have these generic adapters available for usage around it. So this is a standard set. It is available in a catalog we have online for open source usage. It's on GitHub. And so you can pick what you want, but you can pick one, two, all. So it depends on you, what you have and what you need. And one clear message, we do not want to kick out existing systems. So if you have a good working traffic control system, if you have a customer relationship management, we do not want to replace it. This is often a misunderstanding. We want to create a meta layer. So we want to get data out of these systems. We want to integrate them, as Uri said. We want to make them available in our platform for further processing in different kinds, and also via open data portals, either for free or with marketplace applications that you can sell your data, or you can even just share it between companies in this data space topic. So it depends on you. It's not a must to take a full platform, but one clear message for powered by Fiverr: it is a context broker in the middle. This is essential. All else is on your choice. But this is just for people who are used to have more look from left to the right, but from bottom to the top. This is more or less the same. We have data coming in from the real world. We have the context broker in the middle. We have the processing frameworks. They take data and they inject data back into the platform. And this can be also bidirectional, be propagated then to the IoT platforms, which then provide the data to the Raspberry Pi. But it must not be a Raspberry Pi, even if it is a small budget computer. You can also have microcontrollers that are about, if you can have one for €1, they can either, if you program it, directly call to the context broker, or if they speak, for example, MQTT, they go over an IoT agent, and then the MQTT signals get translated into Fiverr context broker. But one important thing to know, that whatever protocols you have here on the left or at the bottom on the former sketch, and you might have many different formats, and it's also very different from domain to domain. So you have different protocols in industry other than in energy or in customer relationship management systems. So it is hard to tackle all these different data sources, but if they are once integrated into the context broker, they are all harmonized into one common language, to the NGSI language. Ulrich mentioned it already, and I will give some more details a bit later. Again, our helicopter view architecture. So we have tools for deploying our platform. We have the context broker, we have the processing, we have the interfacing to the outside real world, and we have some other service functions like security, publication, monetization. Ulrich talked about it. And as I mentioned, it's your choice to replace components as you like. But the context broker is a must. This is mandatory for our architectures. And the core idea of all these components is to work around Fiverr NGSI. NGSI, Next Generation Service Interface. It's a way to exchange and describe data in a common uniform style. So what we have, I already mentioned some of them. I have securities components that do a single sign-on security suite. We have identity management, access control, integrating different standards like EID and XACML, so you can make your applications secure. And like you know it from Facebook or from Google, you can have multiple applications secured with one login, because you have an application management behind, so that you can say, I have that role in that application and I have a different role in another application. So you can set up something similar like a login by Fiverr. By Facebook, you can do also login by Fiverr. We have integration of IoT data from different domains, different techniques. So we have LoRaWAN, we have Sigfox, we have different protocols like MQTT, CoAP, Etsy M2M, or OPC UA that are the widely available ones, they are already available in our catalog, but we also provide means to integrate your individual protocols. So if you have something that is not that standardized and not that widespread and not readily available, we help you to create your own IT agent that your data and your protocol get also translated into the context broker. So we help you with that. We have as I mentioned, big data and machine learning frameworks. This is more or less happening in the north, that you take data from the context broker. They are in one NGSI standard format, so you don't have to care about this MQTT, OPC UA, many different formats, because from to the top, you only speak one language, and that makes your data, your life very much easier. And if you think of data scientists and big data work, there's a rough saying that 60 to 80% is for data cleaning and data preparation. But if you already have your data in one standard format available in the platform, in the context broker, this work is getting much, much easier. And the developer in the north that is doing the processing does not have to care about the formats, the original formats the data come from. So you are abstracting away these different formats, and you are dealing only with NGSI. This is a big advantage. And with this very popular, available and well-documented, most of them Apache tools, you are really ready to go with machine learning, with artificial intelligence and streaming processing, so many kinds of different processing styles, from the more traditional ones like SPAR and the younger ones, for example, Flink. You have a wide variety of services you can use to process your data as you want. We have complete event processing. So this is a tool that is monitoring the data available in the context broker. And if they detect the occurrence of some situations, they start actions like sending SMS, updating again the context broker. It's again the reactive loop, sending out a tweet, or updating a webhook to a web page. So you don't have to monitor your data yourself. You just describe rules. We will see it later. They are the system is monitoring all data in context broker, and if a situation appears, an action is triggered and performed. We can do computer vision, augmented reality applications with a tool called Corental. It's a media server, so you can process incoming video streams, you can analyze the data, you can extract information and extract data that then gets injected into the context broker and as a text data via NGSI. So you can have the information like, I have a camera on the streets and there's a gathering of persons, and maybe this is not good because it's on a party street and this might cause trouble. So maybe I should have an eye on that, and the police guy should walk across. So having an eye on that. So, or you can do a sorting algorithm in the factory, or whatever you can do with computer vision and parkplatz monitoring or something like this. So it's a wide field of applications you can do. We have remote edge on fog processing. So this is like having in a street lamp pole, for example, a little Raspberry Pi. You do not want to go out and update 5,000 of them in your city. So you want to have processes how you deploy software and update softwares, NGSI compatible software, but without sending your personnel out to 5,000 lampposts and opening them. But you can do it remotely from the cloud. So it's from the left part of our application, it's deployment. So it's in container format, but also a function similar to function as a service, that you can do functions, and this is pre-processing on the cloud, that you do not have to send all your data through the wires and to unload a bit of the data volume from your data center. We have open data portals. Ulrich mentioned already CCAN. This is for open data like city data. This can be published in different formats, Excel, CSV, but also in NGSILD format, so that it's not only downloading files, but also requesting write-time data. We have the ways of monetization of data in marketplace solutions with TM From APIs. And now we are coming a bit more to the edgy NGSILD idea behind it. And there's a reason for me telling this, because it's leading to my core message of these presentations, creating data spaces. So what is NGSI? NGSI is a data structure, it's a data format, but it's also an API, how you interact with data. So we have an application that wants to get or provide data. We have the context broker in the middle, and the context broker holds data integrated from various systems or sensors or actuators, and that is also sending data out. So this is bi-directional, and you can have it many different domains like energy and industry, whatever you name it. And as we have already seen, there's lots of different data inside. And we have a standardized data model behind it. So we have entities like this is the windmill number 72. The windmill is 500 meters high, and the metadata is a meter, not feet, and it has additional values. And the speed of the rotor is 50 miles per minute, and so you have easy description of entities, properties of entities, values of properties, and relations on it. For example, there is a camera on top of it, and the camera is of the model ATR blah 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 from Samsung. So you have a real easy data model that is describing your data, and this is standardized throughout the whole system. So it's similar throughout the different data types, and it's easy to work with. This looks simple, but if you go and dig a bit deeper, it's a simple but powerful APIs, because in this API, and there is especially at Etsy, there's a continuously updated document about the specifications of this API. There's, like with an iceberg, like with the Titanic, there's a lot of things going on below the surface. So it's not only putting data into the context broker and reading data from the context broker, but it's all what you need to handle with API data, pagination, geolocation filters, datetime support query filters, lots of things you do. We will see some of them. So it's powerful in the end, and important to say and to stress again, it's standard and unique. So if you know one context broker, you know all context broker, because they all share the same API. And this is important for interoperability. So what we have. So we have, of course, creation of entity. I say I have a windmill and I register a windmill. So I take this data, I format my attributes and the values. It's 500 meter high and the rotor is 50 meter in diameter. So you format your data and you put the data into the context broker. The picture here from industry, but I think this should do the trick. So we can put data in. We can update data. So you have changes. You can say, okay, it's not green anymore. I've colored it red. So you update the color of your windmill. So you can update existing data, and you can, of course, query data. So you say, give me all from all windmills in Hamburg. Give me the data and the height of them. I want to calculate an average height of it. So you can, like a database, but it's far more than a database. You can put in data, change data, and query data. This is pretty simple. But we can also do geo-query. So you can say, give me all data from Hamburg, or from Berlin, or from wherever in Spain, maybe. And this is because there's a MongoDB below, and we also work with Crate.io. This is inside the database, but this is important for what we do, because context, if we think of all these W questions, who, when, where, why, the where question is always very important for describing context, because if I know that the cafeteria is available and it has a beautiful seat for me free, but it's 500 kilometers away, it does not help me. I want to have something nearby, like in a Google search, and I want to be there in 5 minutes by foot. And so the question where is an important thing, an important data item throughout Fiverr. And we have the very important question of subscriptions and notifications. So all before that we have create, update, and query is synchronous. So I ask a question, I get an immediate answer, and that's it. But we also have subscription models, like give me in the future, but all information about temperature in Hamburg, inform me always if something is changing, and send me a notification. And this is asynchronous, because you order it, you put the subscription now, and from until the validity of the subscription, you get notifications of the data. And so this is asynchronous, and so you get notified with individual format and a set of data you want to see and you are allowed to see. And that's an important thing. We will see it later. So we also have the second important concept, like context providers. So because you might have many data points. You might have different areas like Germany, Schleswig-Holstein, cities, streets. You might have hierarchies of data. Maybe not all data is in one context broker. Maybe you have one for Germany, one for the states, for the counties. And so you can have a hierarchy. And so you must not have all data in one system. So you can say, I am a context provider, and I tell you, the Germany context broker, I have data available, and if you want to know it, ask me, I provide you. So you have access to data, but you do not hold the data. And this is done by context providers, and the mechanisms are all available in the standard. This helps to decouple producers and consumers of information. So as I mentioned, you have many different protocols and formats in the south area, so in the incoming area, in the real world scenario. But to the north side, you only have one. You have only the NGSI. So whatever 500 different protocols you have below, and normally a developer would have to learn and conduct all of the coding for reading this data, all this is totally decoupled because everything is harmonized into NGSI. And so to the north, if you are developing an application and you want to consume information, it's totally decoupled. If you do not put the data in from whom the data point is, you don't even know where it comes from, because this is decoupled in the context broker. And to the north side, you have only one dialect, you have only one way of requesting and talking to the context broker, and you have one standard data format. And this helps to speed up smart application development. What I already mentioned is filtering and queries. You can say, I have 1,000 thermometers in Hamburg, and this is a lot of data. And if they measure every 5 minutes, this is a lot of data coming in. I don't want to see so much data because I'm only interested in the data of my street. So I can filter the query. And this is something very unique compared to other brokers like MQTT brokers or Kafka brokers, for example. There are similarities, of course, but if you then, with them, subscribe to a topic, you get all data. So you don't have these filter mechanisms. So if you subscribe to thermometers in Hamburg, you get flooded with 1,000 data points per second, and you have to do the filtering yourself. In Fiverr Context Broker, you can do it directly with the context broker. So you can say, either in querying, give me only the thermometers in my street. So you can put into the request, you can put filter criteria, and you can put geolocation data. So there's a lot of more criteria for filtering. This is the part of the iceberg below. I cannot go into too much detail here, but it's a variety of things, and it enables really, really, really individual requests so that you actually only get the data that you need and the data that you want and the data that you're allowed to see. Because maybe you have data points in your context broker you don't want to show to external customers, especially if we think of data spaces. So if you have a contract with an external company, you want to share with them some data, but maybe not all data. And this is something that you can put in here. And this is a mandatory thing to restrict data access. And this is what we can do. And this is all done by appending information to the query string. Like here, give me all entities, give me all thermometers, and the query string is the temperature should be higher than 25. And then you don't get all the 990 data points that are below 25, but you only get the 10s that are above. And this is a quite complex query language, and you can do quite complex statements with it because you can combine those different statements. And I don't want to go too much into it, but you have a complete query language behind it. You have operators. So you can say equal, in list, bigger, smaller, match patterns. So you have regular expressions, greater, equal, than. So this is, or similar, like. This is a very powerful query language. And so the data you want to see, the desire you have to select the data, opens many, many ways to describe what you want to see. So you can also put questions like and or. So you can even do logical operators. So give me all data from men above 40, but women above 30. And or. So you can allow to put logical operators. So you have full access to the individual data you want to see, and you are not flooded by the system. This is a real powerful feature that most of the brokers we are often compared with do not offer, and this is very interesting to see. And very important, you can put this to context source registrations. So this is for context providers, and you can also put it to subscriptions. And this is very, very important for what I want to see now. So as I can ask the system, the context broker, where are the buses in Hamburg now, I can also put this subscription. Inform me in the future if there is a bus in Hamburg and the temperature in the bus is above 100 and the tires have a pressure of 1,000. You can express very complex filter criteria, and then you only get notified in these circumstances. And we will use the mechanism of subscription to inform other systems and also other partners. And with that, we can make a dedicated decision who can see exactly what data. And it's not only a filter criteria, it is also the combination of data, because in a similar mechanism, you can say, I select a condition and I only want to see the data, but I only want to see those 3 attributes, or I want to see all attributes, but not this with the privacy data. So you can query and filter data, but you can also have an impact on the combination of the data that you provide. And this is important when you want to share data with persons or with companies outside in the database. So we have geo queries. We can create subscriptions, and you say, okay, the watched attribute is the temperature, and I want to be informed to this webhook URL. And so if there's a change in the temperature, you get an information on that ID on this website, and it is for all entities of my type. This is an example of a subscription. It's very simple to express. Of course, there's a syntax you have to learn, but it's very easy. And with only these very easy to learn means and styles, you can formulate pretty complex and individual expressions that is really coming up to your needs. We have also, if then there is a notification, this is what I wanted about what I say. I can formulate a subscription, a normal subscription, inform me about everything, all changes on temperature, but you can also formulate this temperature lower than 10 and temperature bigger than 0. So everything that is below 0 or higher than 10, higher equal than 10 will not be notified. And this is, if you think of it, if you let it sink in, it's very powerful. Good. Exploiting the advantages of JSON-LD. If you think of master data in your different systems, you have many different ways of writing specific characters. Like in German, it's this OÖ character here. You can write it OE always. So you have many different deviations in how you write text data. So in JSON-LD, it's a linked data. That's the acronym LD. You do not write specific entities and the names for it in the database, but you refer to it via with a context URL. And so you can refer to a dedicated entity. And so you are, this is only one, but you have many opportunities and advantages of using JSON-LD with pointing to context entities better than repeatedly writing them and making mistakes when writing them. Good. But you might ask the question, why should you use such a standard API and not build your own one? Because there are many frameworks outside, and this is quite powerful, and you can build whatever you wish. Why you should use such a standard API? And the answer is, of course, it depends on your use case, what you want, what your skill set is, with whom you're working for. But one thing you can definitely say that API lifecycle and requirements is quite intense. So you have to develop, you have to design your API, you have to write it, you have to document it, you have to maintain it, you have to change it, you have to version it, you have to do everything. And of course, you have to operate the API. So when you have a pet shop API, like you have a shop for selling pet articles, you have to create everything from scratch, because you don't have if you don't follow a standard. and then you have to operate the API. If you are following NGS-ILD, all this creativity work, like describing and maintaining and updating, communicating it to the outside world, all this is done by a standard API of NGSI, because this standard is populated to the outside world. Almost everybody knows it. And so you don't have to do this creativity and maintenance work. So you can just take the API, you can just describe your data, and you can start to work. This helps your business, and your customers don't have to learn that what you have created and designed and maintained, and that you will change over time, but they can just rely on the NGSI API. They can just work with the data. They just have to learn it once, and then you can just work with it. And the data looks pretty similar, whether you're dealing with energy or with industry or with fishing or with agriculture. So if you have learned to work with one domain, you are always capable of working with all the other domains, and you only have to look into the data models. Of course, you have to operate the API. There is some leftover work. You have to operate your data center. If you do not buy in a software as a service context broker, this might also be available in the near future. But all this creativity work and how to describe your data and maintaining, and you need skilled people who do it. All this is, you can leave it behind, and you can just start using NGSI. And if you have worked with one city using NGSI, you can work with all cities in Germany using NGSI. So this is easy for data portability, for interoperability, and makes your life easier. And the maintenance over time is also done for you. So this is API design outsourcing. Good. So XC NGS-ILD is the de facto standard interface for context information. It's the common language for interoperable data interfacing. So it's not only how you request a query, but how you describe your data in the data structure. So it's not only data models, it's a data interface. But this is not enough yet, and Ulrich already mentioned it. We have the initiative Smart Data Models. FIWARE is driving key standards in this initiative. We have heard already some sentences about it. It's an initiative to describe data models powered by us in the domains we care about and we are able to handle at the moment. But it's an open initiative. So if you have a data model that is not yet available and not cared about so far, there's also an open contribution process available so that you can also bring in data models that we don't have so far. But there is already a lot about smart cities, smart energy, smart environments, manufacturing, blah, 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 lots of them, and it's growing continuously. We have a colleague that is really enthusiastically maintaining all these tools and structures. So everything is happening on GitHub. We have the versioning, we have the contribution model, everything is known to developers. So it makes it easy that external contributors are using the standard GitHub processes to work with the data models, because this is not a one-time action, but this is continuously living. It's a discussion. I need this additional attribute. And so it's a continuous cooperation to maintain these data models. And this initiative is growing, and the need in the market is really big. This is a clear result from all the projects we are working in, because if every person involved in a process is describing data differently, it makes it hard to exchange data and work together. Good. Data models is the specification. There is a schema behind that can be used for validation, that you don't get messy data into your system. If you want to participate, you have to provide some examples, and you get listed if you contribute to the system. So it's a full open GitHub-like, GitHub-style process. And so you can even get some credits in your domain if you're participating there. So we have some web resources. Everything is on GitHub. You can see the links. I think we will provide them afterwards with the documentation and the presentation. And there's also a full website that is more and more providing tools around it, so that you have an example data set. You can generate the schemas out of it to make your life easier, to help you onboard. And if this data model is available on GitHub, it's available for everyone, and you with your partners can just go in and start to use it. And then you are not working only with the same standard de facto API in GSI, but you're also describing the data the same way throughout your partners. And then your working with data to be exchanged and to be described gets really easy, because you have to learn it once. It's an easy interface, so you can learn it probably in one day. That's our promise. And then you can start to work with whatever city, and the more and more we get accepted, you can work throughout the world without learning new APIs every day, and keeping an eye on it, because they are changing over time. So standard APIs is a very important thing, but data models describing the same way is also important. Good. There's lots of things going on, initiatives with India, with the GS1, with the Mass Alliance for Mobility. So I can only recommend to go into this direction, because the need for data models is big, and we are driving this initiative because this standardization work is even so important that the Global Standards Initiative, GS1, are participating. So follow it. I can only recommend it. Good. So this is the summary of what Fiverr Standards and GSI brings to help boosting your innovation. You have easy means to right-time access to relevant context data. Data is getting less valuable if it's getting old. And so if you have it more or less right on time, you can act immediately, and you have the possibility to be fast and quick and close to reality, because a robot in the factory that is driving over persons should better react under 1 second, better than in 10 seconds. So if you build something, you can replicate your solution to other environments, to other cities, to other companies. Also considering the status-based idea, this is important to cooperate with others. So build it once and distribute it as much as you want, as you find customers. Interoperability is not within one domain, but also outside your domain, generating better insights of merger of data in a quicker time, because you know the formats. You can really dig into the data and not first spend 1 or 2 days to learn the API. And in the end, you can benchmark what you do, because all participants in the domain sharing those values are working with the same tools and with the same APIs. That makes it easy to be comparable. Good. Many use cases have been built from it. So smart cities, smart agriculture with silos, water management, farming. So just some examples, because I have to speed up a bit. I mentioned this computer vision idea, and there was one city in Netherlands where they had a party street, and they were monitoring the street with cameras, and they were interpreting with computer vision the camera stream, and they were detecting, oh, there is a big crowd gathering. So then they said, okay, this might be an indicator that there is a fight in some minutes, because there are people gathering. Might be peaceful, but might be dangerous. So then they learned this information, they put it in the context broker, they sent this information to the police station, and they sent a security the way. And or they can lift up the light a bit so that it's that the situation relaxes a bit. Or you can just monitor a parking space, and you can do computer vision where cars are standing and what slots are occupied, for example. Or you for your agriculture, so you can name it whatever scenario, we can provide services, because if you detect something, you can act with some ways, and we have some really interesting solutions, and most of them, if you want to be a little bit captivated, we have the Fiverr Marketplace where you can just skim through and find solutions that are available. These are from members of our Fiverr Foundation and our Fiverr community, and just skim through and find solutions from your domain, what is available for you and what has been built with Fiverr, and you will be really amazed what you will find there, because there are fantastic solutions. And so how you work with Fiverr, and demo part 1, I had one solution I showed in Vienna in the last B2B event. I had to change it a bit because of the COVID online version, because I had a demo I could show with lights and with many things. This is not so easy now, but I will use this version of it. So how you are working with Context Broker. The way we work is it's generic enablers. So it's standard components. So the way you work, I have the very simple solutions from the tutorial sections. I will provide the links later. So what you generally do, you spin up the components. Here we have the Iot Agent for JSON data. We have an Mosquito for MQTT data. We have an Orion Context Broker. We have the MongoDB for the Context Broker. And we have Perseo for this mail information. Attention, there happens something. So this is more or less standard configuration. And so you spin up the components in a standard way, and they are ready for operation, but doing nothing first. So if I just spin up this Docker Compose file, I have downloaded the images. They are available on Docker Hub. And then it takes only some second, and a system of multiple components with just a little configuration. It's not more than 10, 12 lines per component in this Docker Compose file. It's spinning up the system. We have the mail dev. This is a little mail application that I don't have to use my private mail. We have CreateDB. We have the MongoDB. We have Quantum Leap as a database. We have Iot Agent. So this is, I think, a 7 component application that should now be available, and I hope the demo code is on my site, so I can just leave it here. If I say Docker PS, I see that all these services are up since 25 seconds, and from now they are available, but they are empty. But this is the way we work with the Context Broker, that we say, okay, it's APIs. And I have a demo available where we have normally I have a Raspberry Pi, and this is measuring distances like a parking sensor. And I cannot show it here now in this setup, but the idea is to connect to a Raspberry Pi that is sending data in and receiving commands back. And the way I do it, I have to install Iot Agent. This is this intermediate translation tool that is interacting between MQTT in this demo case and Context Broker with NGSI. So what I have to do first is I create a device group, and this device group says, I want to, this is just a structural thing, I create a device group that is available for sensors, like, for example, in this factory hall on this shop floor. This is more a structural element. And then I say, okay, I create a device. I create a device, and this device is taking the attributes distance, range expression, time reading. So I register a device because the Iot Agent was naked and blank, and there was no information before, and so there is no way of my Raspberry Pi to speak with the Context Broker. So I have spin up the Iot Agent, I have created a device group, and now I say there will be a device. And this device will deliver the information distance. There will be some more, but I keep it short today. So I just put it in. This is simple API management. And then I learn, okay, there are devices. I can read the devices. And I learn, yes, I've created an ultrasonic device that is managing the distance measurement. And this is the number and some more information. And so now the system is ready to connect to a Raspberry Pi that is available and ready to send data. Then there are 2 means of realizing the bidirectional data. There is the way of pulling information from the Context Broker. So I can say, if every time I connect to the Context Broker, I request for defined data points. So this is the way back down to the south. So I can put information in the Context Broker, and this information gets sent down to the south. And this is done with pull commands. This is the option 1. I can say, okay, there will be a pull command 1, and I can check it is available now. It is pull command 1. It is here. And I cannot show you this, but there's a second option. There is a push command. And when this was created, when I set up the device, there's a push command. So there are 2 ways of sending data from the cloud or from the Context Broker back to the device, that you say, either I push it now, or every time I request data, I ask for this additional information. And then the one thing is immediate, and the other thing is the moment that you query for data. Good. So normally I would spin up my Raspberry Pi now, but I cannot do it now. So what I have here, it is a simple JavaScript code. It's just 120 lines. And there is some documentation and some demo things about it. So I have the sensor, and I say, okay, I'm reading. I'm the ultrasonic ranger. I have information about temperature, and I'm connecting to this MQTT information. So the Raspberry Pi now only speaks MQTT, and the context broker is also connecting via the Iot agent to the MQTT. So the common ground is MQTT. Then I say, okay, to make data visible, I subscribe to data, but the most important thing I can show now here is that I have a continuous ongoing reading of distances, and this distance gets ranked, and in the end, the data is sent out to this attribute. So the data I read on the Raspberry Pi is sent to the MQTT broker to the topic called attributes. It is a specific topic only for this device. That's why I had to register them. And so from now on, if I would have had the, I would just start this code. This would read the data and would send it to the context broker. And this is something I do manually now. So I will inject the readings manually. So when I would demonstrate with a running Raspberry Pi, I don't have the time, I would change the pull command, the pull commands. I would change it, and you could read it on the screen that it's get updated. And every time I pull the information, and if you push information, then you would see that it's directly going down. So it's important that it's not only reading data from the real world, but it's also actuating data back down. And everything is handled by the standard mechanisms of NGSI and the context broker. And the MQTT handling is done by the Iot agent. So what I do now, I have spin up different machines, and I've mentioned that I have spin up complex event processor. And this complex event processor is also, if you look here, where's my terminal? It's just running. It's empty. It's not anything about my use case. So what I do to connect it to the context broker, I just put a subscription. And this is the mechanism I already described to you. So I subscribe to a data point, and the data point is give me a notification if the attribute distance is changing, and I do not put a criteria here, a condition. So this is an easy example. I could also say only if it's higher than 10. But this is something I want to do in the complex event processor. And if this happens, please send me information and only the attribute distance to this endpoint. So this call is connecting the context broker with the complex event processor. And this is just one API call. And that moment, without coding, without anything like that, I have those two components that have been started completely empty, are now connected. And this, I can see I have created this subscription. The subscription is reading for ultrasonic ranger information for the attribute distance, and is notifying the distance if something is happening. So from now on, immediately, these systems are connected. But for the moment, the complex event processor only gets information about distances. It does not know what to do with it. So I can put rules in there. So that's what I mentioned. I have to describe these complex situations and scenarios. And I hope I have everything okay here. Yes, because the Perseo takes a bit longer to start. So I create rules. And I have one rule for the parking system, one rule that is firing if the distance is smaller than 10. One is if it's bigger and equal than 10. I cannot show you now, but I also have some aggregation rule. And that's what I meant with looking back to the past with data. So this rule is, so the complex event processor can do also complex calculations. And I say, give me the average distance of the last two events. And if you detect this, and if you have a new data point, send it back to the attribute average distance last 2, and bring back the calculated value. So I have created this, I think so, yes. I create another one for the average distance last 10 elements, and then I can see all these rules are available, they are now working. So I have now configured 2 systems that didn't know before how to work with each other, how to send data, what data, how to process it, and how to remind data back. And this is only in my system. And now I can check my entity, it's the ultrasonic ranger, and I don't have average values. Why? So I've created them, and I've created rules why there is no information about it. And I can see, yes, this is a metrics information endpoint. I can see, well, okay, it was okay. I have rules created okay, and I have notifications created okay. What's wrong there? And the reason is I have not updated the distance, because the notification only fires if there is an update in the distance. And I have created something like a random number generator here. And so I can manually, this is, I'm simulating the distance measurement, and I can say, okay, I have a measurement of 6, and it's randomly generating. And now I have a different measurement of 33. And now, and I hope everything is working fine, I have, now I have these data points, so new attributes have been created, average distance last 10 and average distance last 2. It was 6 and 32. Actually, I'm a little bit confused by the numbers now, but this data is created by the complex event processor. And the complex event processor per se has received notification from the context broker, has calculated the value. I have to send up another data point. So now I have 3 measurements, and these 2 values should differ now. So because this is a different, only the last 10. So all 3 values are included, and this is only the last 2. So this is a continuously updated average value from the past last 2 and last 10 values. And so this is back injected from this processing framework. And this is an easy example, of course, but it should demonstrate how this works. And so you can see this data gets re-injected, gets processed. This is a reactive cycle. We have measurements from the distance sensor. We have calculations, they get re-ejected, and then they get, these results can also be propagated back to the Raspberry Pi. So this is our scenario. So I can create data, I have processing of data, I have results putting back into the context broker, and I have, of course, other, the Raspberry can be informed back about the results. So now we're coming to this data economy things, this data sharing, this data spaces things. So companies want to share data, because so far I'm only in my system, and I am here, I speed up a bit, I am in my solution. I have a digital twin representation of my distance measurement. I have a smart solution. This is the very simple example of average distances measured by the number of data points. And so this is only my solutions. But I can also integrate data of multiple smart solutions, and I can share data with many different companies or cities that are outside of my system. And that is the moment when we come to data spaces and we come to data points. And so we have different context brokers in different domains. Each of them are their own systems, and they share data from one context broker to the other. But so far, we only have data in one context broker. So how do we make it that data is flowing from one context broker to the other? Of course, there's a lot of question of data sovereignty and trust. And so this is the idea of IDSA, and this is the idea of Gaia X. This is really extensive topics. I cannot go into details now. But what we generally do is we have connectors. These connectors contain Fiverr components, and there are data space connector components that are fulfilling all these data space requirements for security. But within the context broker, within the connector, I have standard context broker applications and standard identity management applications. And when I want to ship data from one participant to the other, I want to send it from one context broker to the other with all the security checks in the middle. This is far too extensive and complicated for this short talk, but I come to what Ulrich has shown before. The exchange in data spaces has multiple dimensions. It's about data interoperability, data sovereignty, trust, data value creation and governance. And we have, with the IDSA, we have different realizations of it, and this is work under constructions, especially with the Gaia X. I'm the whole time in not full screen mode. I go into it. This is under continuously development, especially with the new Gaia X initiative. They are approaching each other, and but in the end, the core building blocks of creating the data spaces and the white paper about it, about what it needs to build the data spaces, is available, and Fiverr is fulfilling it with components from our generic enabler catalog. We have also an Eye for Trust project that is implementing similar identity means. It's a Netherlands company I share. It's a living system in the logistic domain, and with them together, we create data sharing and data space technology that is aiming to work together with IDSA and Gaia X, whether they are not fully going together. This is open at the moment. This is work under construction. So if you remember, there were best parts of this query language. You can put your individual data needs, what you want to see, and you can put your filter expression to exactly what entities you want to see and what attributes you want to see. So you can really put together the exact definitions of what you want. And this also goes into the idea of sharing data between companies, because the company, you have a data set with 100 data points, but you only want to share 3. And this is something that you can do with the query language, and you can do it with subscriptions. We have learned that it's all possible. And with these subscriptions, we can also let 2 context broker work together. So it's context broker federation. And this is, again, a very short demo. I'm coming to the end of my presentation. Yeah, it's coming to the end. It's very short because now I subscribe 2 context brokers together. I have an endpoint showing the calls, the API calls themselves. I make a subscription. I see, okay, there is this another subscription now, and I can put a new update, and I hopefully can see new software update. And what I can see now, it's not updating internal document data, but it is sending information to an external data point. And this is just for showing the data, because normally it's invisible. So the ultrasonic value, the value from the ultrasonic ranger, so the value that it's the new average distance of 2 is now 24.5, has now been sent not to one context broker, but with the subscription between those 2 context broker, so the federation of context broker has connected those 2 with ease. You have seen it. And so with simple subscription, with the whole set of condition criteria expressions, you can easily connect context brokers, and you can share exact the data that you want. And so you don't have to code, you don't have to hire developers for that. It's just API handling. And this is the way you are able to share data between companies. And I have also the complex event processor. There was an alert that should send an email. Distance is now by 6. So I'm finished now. Conclusions, Fiverr is great. It's open for all forever. The slides are here. There are interesting links for the audience in the backlog of the presentation. And now I'm finished. And there are some questions for me, maybe. Thank you.
Thank you, Gernot. Thank you for your presentation. We worked a lot together, and I can say you are really expert and you can explain the things. And if you have technical questions, or I cannot can give you every answer. We don't have very much time, but we have a few questions, and Ulrich is also joining us. Thank you. The first question, I want to use Fiverr. How do I get in touch with the community? Are there local meetups? I can say one meetup is in Vienna twice a year. The next will be on the 7th of June. It will be online in German language, but if you understand German, you are welcome, and please write me email. But maybe Ulrich, you have to say something.
Yeah, maybe two more opportunities. There will be the Fiverr Smart Fest. As you all know, we are not able to do any physical events at the moment, so we will have a digital Fiverr event. Will be June 8th to 10th, also with a lot of technical stuff in there. So this is an opportunity to get closer to the Fiverr ecosystem, to learn more about Fiverr. And you are also welcome to join as a visitor the technical steering committee meetings. They are every Monday from 10:30 to 12:30. Just visit the Fiverr website under developers, and here you can find the link how to get access to the technical steering committee. And once you got convinced that Fiverr is an interesting ecosystem for you, you can also become member of the Fiverr Foundation and member of the team. You'll find this under Join within the Fiverr website under fiverr.org.
And there's an extensive list of links in the backlog of my presentation, so public information, tutorials, everything people might want.
And there are also the Fiverr iHubs, I think, all over the world.
Of course.
Also good contact points. So there are a lot of possibilities. That's what we can say. We have another question, maybe to Ulrich as well. What are your feelings about the official membership of Palantir, Amazon, Huawei, Google into the European sovereignty-created Gaia-X?
Yeah, so these are companies which are not headquartered in Europe. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the target of Gaia-X is to create a federated ecosystem based on European values. So not under the Cloud Act of the US, or not forced to build in backdoors like in China. Gaia-X as an organization is open to all members, also from outside of Europe. But the main strategic decisions which are taken in the board of directors can only be taken by companies, by members, or by members from companies which have their headquarters in Europe. Only people from these organizations are eligible to become elected into the board of directors. And so it is made sure that the main strategic decisions are made by people and organizations coming from Europe.
Thank you. Another question, maybe to Gernot. Could Fiverr be a neutral solution approach for private and sensitive data in health, social, caring businesses, considering data from various sources or interfaces?
Yes, so we are coming more from the open data domain. So it was not privacy by design by first, because it was open data for open mind. But now with more and more projects, and also with the Eye for Trust, we are putting detailed sharing mechanisms, who can see what, and so who can have access to data. And this might not fulfill each thinkable idea of privacy, but we are getting more and more into it. And so, yes, in the future it can be. So we are adding privacy functionality like encryption and things like that. But this is ongoing work.
Yeah, but again, not only in the future, but it is already now. For those of you who are coming from the northern part of Italy, the system called Digital Enabler for BIOS from engineering, it is completely Fiverr-based, is used to manage all COVID-19 related information. So thousands of doctors, of laboratories, of personal data information are connected to the system and managing all COVID-19 related information in parts of Italy. And several of them are private and sensitive nature.
many projects ongoing. You cannot follow all of them.
Okay, thank you for your answers. I think we have time for 2 more questions. Maybe to Ulrich. Where do you see Fiverr in 5 years?
I hope you got an understanding of our overall mission to make data management interoperable, to break down data silos. And we would like to be where GSM is for the telecommunication today. That's where Fiverr and Fiverr-based technologies and standards should be within 5 years. So we would like to be the GSM for context information management.
Thank you. Is there some kind of Fiverr sandbox?
Yeah, maybe Gernot, you could elaborate a bit on the Fiverr Labs network.
Yeah, it's 2 different ways. So we have tutorials. They're also in the backlog of the links of my presentation when it will be shared. So you can have everything on Docker Compose on your local machine. So you can run it on your local computer. And we have facilities on a public OpenStack cloud. So you can apply for some resources, some cloud resources that you get access to, and then you can run it in the cloud. So you get resources like compute and public IPs. But you have to register for it, and you get confirmed, and then you can exit freely, because we have to provide a little bit of security things of business in the internet. So we have to know you. It's a registration process, but if you want some cloud resources for trying out, you can have. It's lab.fiverr.org.
Thank you. And you answer very quick, so I think we can have 1 more question. How do you get started if you wanted to use Fiverr for the first time?
Fiverr tutorials GitHub by Google. Put it in Google, Fiverr tutorials GitHub. Then you will find a really extended list of building on top of each other tutorials that are bringing you from the first steps to a real expert. And it's based on Docker Compose. You just need Docker on your machine and you can start in 2 minutes.
Thank you. And it was also very quick at the last and really quick answer. How long does it take to become reasonably familiar with Fiverr?
So the most important question is to learn about NGSI, because this is in most components the way to talk between and to make connections between systems. We have seen it, so we have connected databases and different context brokers. And a normal developer who is capable of handling RESTful APIs and the tools of handling RESTful APIs, you have seen an HTTP manager like Postman on my screen for doing the calls, and a savvy normal a skilled developer who can handle RESTful APIs will learn it under 1 day to make substantial first steps.
Okay, thank you for the questions, for the very interesting questions. Thank you for your quick answers. And as we are running out of time and have 2 over minutes, we are already at the end of the workshop. Thank you for your participation. I hope that you were able to take something away and learn something new. And I wish you more interesting workshops today and tomorrow. We have still about 10 to 15 more. Many thanks also to Ulrich and Gernot that you are joining us every time we need your help and we call you. That's really nice from you. If you have found interest in Fiverr and the foundation, use the contacts and experiences you have just gained. So please, you have the websites, you have the contacts, and there are a lot of information and a lot of activities going on always. So thank you for coming, thank you for participating, and have a nice evening and a nice day tomorrow. Goodbye.
Thanks for having us.